Welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I am a CICC licensed immigration consultant and I love my job. Why? Because immigration keeps you going, right? The road provides every single week, every single day. There is something or the other to talk about. There's something that's happening which is making it very exciting. Now, I understand not you may want to see it in this fashion, that call it exciting or not, but hey, don't blame me for that. A lot of you actually are frustrated, angry, upset, annoyed, uh, uh, desperate in some cases, frustrated by and large, right, with the way things have been happening. But then we now have a new immigration minister. Hey, Rachel Bendayan, right? So that's pretty awesome. We wanted a change, right? So what could have been a better change? Well, actually, nobody expected that change. At least I didn't, for sure. Yes, we knew that a new prime minister is on the way. That's something which we expected. We didn't expect immigration minister to be changed. And the reason why this is a bit odd is because, you see, now this year, elections have to happen, right? Before November, this is the election year, so the elections have to happen. Now, with the fact that the parliament was prorogued and then there is a change in the leadership of the Liberal Party. Hey, Mark Carney is now the Prime Minister of Canada, just in case you didn't know that. With this, Mark Carney has then reduced or rather shrunk his cabinet size. He now has 23 other cabinet ministers except himself, and I mean other than himself, from the earlier 36. So a lot of portfolios are being shared. But immigration minister is Rachel Bendayan. And what can I say? I know that most of you don't like Marc Miller. But what you guys are missing is the fact that Marc Miller was doing what he has been asked to do on the basis of the previous screw-ups, if you want to call that. Things weren't really handled very well, right? Since 2019, 2020, you had PR, you had several extensions, you had open door policies for visit visas, you had open door policies for the study. You had literally anybody and everybody could come into Canada, walk through the borders. So over the period of years, lots and lots of I'm trying to find a politer word and say decisions were made. And with that happening, obviously you had this mess that has been created. So actually Marc Miller was able to take some very difficult and tough decisions. Yes, as I said, a lot of you don't like that. A lot of you don't like him. But then you are thinking only of yourself. You're only thinking about yourself. But you forget that a Canadian immigration minister has nothing to do with your likes and dislikes. Canadian immigration minister has to do with the fact of what is best in the interest of Canada, in the interest of Canadian citizens, Canadian public. And an immigration minister does not work for you as an aspirant or applicant. He or she is working for Canada and Canadian interests. That's where the difference of understanding comes into play, and a lot of you don't like him. But Marc Miller did whatever he could. I guess it was a tough one for him because he had to face those difficult ones. Yes, I know, I can see Mark was this, Mark was that. I can see those comments, and that's all pretty cool. But again, you can have an opinion, I can have an opinion, and we all can look at it in different ways. Well, starting with the weekly roundup, and we will talk about all the other things that I was saying. We will get to that a bit. PNP draws. There was an Alberta PNP draw held on the 5th of March. I'm sure most of you are not interested in this one. 9 invitations were issued. It was the law enforcement pathway, and that's about it. New Brunswick also conducted a draw between the 3rd and the 6th of March. They invited people under the skilled worker experience class, skilled worker New Brunswick graduates, and the occupation streams. And total of 98 candidates received the invitations on this one. In the other news, okay, so this one is a good one, right? You already know about the fact that Canada has now proposed, or rather, no, this was, I think, Marc Miller's goodbye. It was his goodbye when he announced that there is a pathway which is being initiated for 6,000 undocumented construction workers. At the same point of time, he also said that a lot of people who are working within the construction industry and who would like to study without a study permit as being an apprentice within the construction industry, they would be able to do that. So that was the another goodbye gift that Marc Miller gave us. Okay, the home care pilot. Now, I know home care pilot is a very popular one. Again, home care, and the reason home care pilot is in my opinion, it has been abused like anything in the recent past. I do not know how this year it's going to be, because from what I'm hearing, from what I'm seeing, it's just going to be another of the abusive programs. Now, primarily the way home care pilot is meant to be, and a lot of people are getting confused with this. I'm getting a lot of people who are booking consultations, who are talking to me, who are asking questions, and they are asking about their job offers, who, in my opinion, may not be eligible. And I'll tell you why in a bit. The only big issue here is that this program is supposed to start on the 31st of March, right? As you already know. I'm just opening up the stream and the page, so we have it here on our... No, we don't have it here. So as far as the home care pilots is concerned, the requirement is that there should be... There you go. So the home care pilot says that you should have, first of all, the work experience, right? So you should have the recent... First of all, not for people outside Canada. This is only for workers who are in Canada. First requirement is that you should have equivalent education, which is at least the high school diploma. Second is that you should have English level 4. Again, very, very minimal requirements. I do not know why Canada would do this to themselves by asking for such low, ridiculously low requirements. I'm the one who's deciding. So the third requirement is that you must have recent relevant work experience. So the recent, what they're talking about is that they haven't mentioned how recent, that you must have recent relevant work experience or a credential that you can use to show that you have the background. And that is for 6 months. So you should have a 6 months work experience, or you should have a credential of 6 months of related home care training. That's what you're supposed to have. And then the last one is the job offer. Now, as far as the job offer is concerned, this is where a lot of people are getting confused. A lot of people are not seeing it properly. This job offer has to be in a home care setting. Guys, this is a home care pilot program. This is not a long-term care pilot program. So a lot of people who are working in residential living, residential centers, institutions, who are providing long-term care to the residents within that institutions, old age living, old age homes, those settings. Well, the way I see it, this is supposed to be a program for home care pilot. And therefore, if you work in an institutional setting, then that might not be eligible. However, if you're employed, the employer who is then going to assign you for short-term care services in the homes of the patients, then you would be eligible. But if this is going to be you providing home care services within that institutional settings, then that might not be eligible. So this is one thing which you need to be aware of. So if you're getting a job at a daycare center, that may not be eligible. However, if you're getting a job with an agency who is then providing home care services for the children and then assigning you to those kind of services, then that would be eligible. This is something which you guys need to take care of when you are looking at this particular program. Now, as far as the program, it starts on the 31st of March. It is definitely going to be first come, first serve. I do not see, there is no point system, so it can't be a draw. It can be a random lottery system. That is something which is possible. I doubt it very much, but it is possible. So they have you all create your expressions of interest, and then voila, they pick up some random lotteries, like kind of a thing, which I don't know, good or bad, but that is something which can happen. But in the past, the way the home care pilot has worked is that first come, first serve. It usually used to open on the 1st of January, this year, 31st of March. Now, if it is going to be first come, first serve, My problem with the government in this situation is that today is the 15th of March. We have 15 days to go. They still haven't announced the criteria. So when I'm saying criteria, I mean the details. So when you say recent, relevant, how recent should the work experience be? You're saying job offer. Do you have any income requirements? What is the requirement for the job offer? What is the requirement from the employers? Is just an employment letter going to do? What kind of documentation will you accept? When you say you need to have recent, relevant work experience, will you accept work experience of a mother who's taking care of the child? Would you accept work experience which is not paid? Would you accept work experience which is voluntary or as an international student in Canada? So all these confusions remain. RCC has not bothered to give us any clarity there. So this is going to be a mess of a program, just like you would expect. But 31st of March, we've got so many clients signed up already. Obviously, I don't think we're going to take any more. I guess we've got one too many there. We've taken only as many people who will be able to submit the application so as to give everybody a fair chance. But at the end of the day, if you do not know how to handle the portal, because we don't even know which portal they will use, I'm assuming they will be using the PR portal, which is the non-express entry, because that's the only thing. And I also assume the reason why they're not announcing anything is because the portal is not yet ready to handle all these information and details. It is going to be something like TR to PR, if I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but where you were able to upload everything to the TR to PR platform, the portal that they had created. I'm assuming they will be creating something similar to that as well. So if you're a person who is not IT savvy, tech savvy, who is not familiar with the forms, who doesn't know what information to enter where, then I would recommend that. And if you're eligible, of course, then I would recommend that you seek some professional help. Otherwise, this might be one boat that you might miss. So the quotas for this particular one, sorry, not talking quotas yet. Marc Miller, in his announcement when he went to the Filipino Community Center in Scarborough in Toronto GTA, he on the 8th of March, he announced that the total quota, now see, they haven't even made this quota public. It's not even there on the IRCC website. This is how ridiculous things are getting here. The quotas are supposed to be 2,750 because he announced it. We have it on recording. 2,600 are supposed to be for the workers in Canada. Now, that is another thing. When they say workers in Canada, will they accept people who are students in Canada, or you have to be on a work permit? Will you accept people who are on a closed work permit or open work permit? Will you accept people who have changed their status to a visitor because their work permits had expired? So much of confusion. Be eligible, who can, and that's typical what IRCC does for you. But 2,600 is the home care pilot quota for workers in Canada. They have left 150 slots for undocumented people. So if you are undocumented, if you do not have status in Canada, but you have the recent relevant work experience, so what is IRCC doing? They're endorsing illegal work. They're saying, hey, you know what? Even if you're working illegally, in future, we can come up with these programs where you might be eligible. So there you go. Another, after the undocumented construction workers, they now have 150 slots for the undocumented home care workers as well. Now, this is not to point fingers towards the undocumented. Don't get me wrong. It's to point the fingers towards the messed up system. Yes, you are undocumented because you may have certain circumstances, exceptional circumstances, which may lead you to be in that situation. But by and large, a lot of people who are undocumented are not in any exceptional circumstances. They just chose to stay back because, hey, why are you judging me, right? So it's towards them. But at the end of the day, this is what IRCC has done. 2,750 home care workers under this pilot. That's the quota. 31st of March is when they will open. Hey, Mark Carney is now our new Prime Minister. He was sworn in as the 24th Prime Minister of Canada yesterday. He was not pompous about it. He did not do the whole walk around the parliament. He came through the side door, which was pretty decent. Nothing to make big hue about. But the thing with this whole situation is, and also with the next situation, is that he is going to be a prime minister. So he's unelected, right? So he's not really a minister of any riding. He's an unelected prime minister. How that? But that's how Canadian constitution works, Canadian parliament system or political system works. He leader of the Liberal Party, recently elected from within the Liberal Party itself. Therefore, he becomes the Prime Minister. But he is not a minister by any sense, in the sense like he does not hold any other political position as such. It is anticipated that riding on the current wave or the sentiment that is ongoing between Canada and the USA, that he may call for an early election probably by the end of this month. That's something which is doing the rounds, on the social media. If that happens, he obviously has a chance to then, stand for a position as a minister in one of the ridings. And if he wins, and if the Liberal government comes back into power, then of course he continues to be a Prime Minister. And of course, if he does not win, then he probably will be the shortest term Prime Minister in Canada. Other than this, he then also has so this is, we'll just come back to that. We also now have Bendayan as our new immigration minister, which is pretty cool. I had some very horribly snarky and snidey comments of her being a woman and as an immigration minister, which is ridiculous, right? In today's day and time, very misogynist of those people who still feel that. But she is a career politician. No, she's not a career politician, but she has been in politics for quite some time. I think since 2015. She's done quite well. She has been re-elected several times from the Outermont riding in Quebec. And yes, she is a Quebecer, right? So she is from Quebec. For a lot of people, somehow feel or believe that just because you are from Quebec, you will promote Francophone immigration. That's not how it works. But even as I go into that, I just have a very, very short.
The Honourable Rachel Bendayan, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
I, Rachel Bendayan, do solemnly and sincerely promise and declare that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trusts reposed in me as Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Thank you.
Well, there you go. That was Rachel's being sworn in as the immigration minister. Somebody said, why are all these ministers from Quebec only? No, all these ministers are not from Quebec. Sean Fraser was from Nova Scotia. Okay, I don't remember where Marco Mendicino was from. And I don't also remember where Ahmed Hussein was from, who was the previous immigration minister. But only the last two, Marc Miller and her, Rachel, who are from Quebec. So again, going back to the whole discussion about Francophone immigration. First of all, I think by now, all of us, we are still holding against the Francophone immigration. Let's get on with the program. We know Francophone immigration is here. We know Francophone immigration. French is the second official language. And if you are a French speaker, you get that advantage. So why hold it against Francophones, right? Because if you look at it, other than the Francophone draws, everything else is the Anglophone draws. Everything else, whether it's the PNP, whether it's the express entry. So just the way you holding that resistance towards Francophones, imagine Francophones holding that grudge against Anglophones and saying, hey, we are getting only, how much is this basically? Last year, about 27,000 ITAs were issued amongst the total about 80, 90,000 IDAs issued. So they are getting less than 20% of the ITAs. And if you see the total economic pathways, they're not even getting any close to that number. There's only 8% or 7% of the economic immigration is going towards the Francophone. So imagine them saying, okay, why are we getting only 8%? Why is Anglophone getting? So, and by now we already know Francophones will continue to be within the Canadian immigration system. So as well, join the program, get on with the program. And if you can learn the language, hey, voila, you will have some advantage there. Now, so many people are of the opinion that if Pierre Poilievre is coming to becomes the prime minister, or if Conservative Party comes into power with the Canadian immigration, how does that change things? How does that look? Well, different strokes for different folks, kind of a thing. At this point of time, I guess any political party is going to play with the immigration agenda, right? Because it is part of the national, it's part of the national anti-sentiment or anti-immigration sentiment that exists right now. You have to agree, right? The Liberals did make a mess out of this one. Too many visitors, too many international students, too many foreign workers, all of them not being able to find a pathway. So there is a grudge and an frustration and anger there in that community as a temporary residence community. Then the permanent residence community are seeing, or other citizens are seeing, the fact that because so many temporary residents, they can't find houses, the cost of living is high, the inflation is high, and that the crime is rising, the problems within the community are rising, and therefore there is this negative sentiment that is ongoing. Then politicians have used it to their advantage to further their agendas by adding fuel to this, swaha. They keep doing this. Every time people say, hey, anti-immigration is swaha, they add more to it, and that make a bit of a mess, I would say, as well. But at the end of the day, Canada needs immigration, and you cannot go away or move away from that. You can argue with me, you can debate with me, you can debate with anybody, you can go on top of a minaret and claim otherwise, but that's not what the numbers are saying. That's not what the logic is suggesting. So Canada will not survive long term without immigration. There is no way. There is no picture in the future with Canada prospering and growing with no immigration. So that's not going to happen. Currently, the mess that has been created, that of course they need to set down this particular mess. So over this short term, so when I'm saying short term, I mean from 1 to 3 years, you will see lots of changes, lots of moves, lots of decisions being taken, which by and large, to people who are currently temporary residents in Canada, they might find it's against them. It's not to their favor. But then you have to also see, right, what the balance and what kind of a balance the government wants to maintain. So with that being said, even the current, even Marc Carney, and let me take this back, he says, and this is the same what Pierre Poilievre says, that they both want to bring in some more immigration camps. So don't be shocked and don't be surprised when, as we come to October, November this year, if the election is already held earlier, no matter who is the prime minister, no matter who is the immigration minister, that you may see more immigration caps coming. You will also see that the attention outside Canada immigration remains absolutely the lowest priority. Transitioning temporary residents who are currently in Canada, having them become permanent residents or offering them permanent resident pathways, that will continue to be a priority with with both the sides, whether it's the Liberals, whether it's the Conservatives, whoever comes into power. And they will also actively continue to reduce the temporary foreign workers. So while Marc Carney has been saying these aspects about immigration, it's the same from Conservatives as well, from Pierre Poilievre as well, that is what they would be looking to do. Even before going away, they also identified that they have been too dependent, over-reliant on India as the source country for the international students. But then they can't blame India for it. The fact is that India already has a very well built, very well developed study abroad industry by itself. It didn't happen overnight. It's one of the very few countries, I actually can't think of any other country, where the access to education and student loan is so easily available, right? You can easily get a student loan if you want to study abroad. The education agencies are across the whole country. The number of programs, the number of options that are available for students who wish to study abroad are incredible. I don't see a lot of other countries having built that infrastructure around the study abroad program. So you can't blame India if they have turned out to be one country which you now have a lot of students from. But yes, at this point of time, if they are going to consciously bring less students from India and more from the rest of the world, I don't really blame them. At this point of time, there is a disproportionate number of Indian international students versus from the rest of the world. So that is, again, over-reliance of study permit dependence from one country. And then the housing crisis and skills trade. Well, this still continues. The trade category is continued to not have sufficient representation within the number of people who are coming to Canada as workers. And the housing crisis also continues. Now, it's also going to be the funda for most of the political parties as we go forward, identifying that unless they have sufficient housing, they might want to cap on immigration. So that agenda will also continue. But Mark Carney has also indicated, and this is that he would look to revisit the relationships with India, China, as well as with the US, of course. US right now being the hot topic at this point of time, but not only that, also with India. With Justin Trudeau, I think the relationships had become quite sour between India and Canada. So that is also something that Mark Carney, within his short duration of being a prime minister, I don't know how long he lasts as a prime minister, or would he come back as a prime minister or not, but within this short period of time, yeah, that is something which he will be looking to do as well. Now, coming back to Rachel Bendayan. Who is Rachel Bendayan, right? I mean, a lot of people obviously have gone to her Wikipedia page. Well, she was born May 10th, 1980 in Montreal, Quebec. She belongs to a Moroccan Jewish background, Moroccan Jewish roots. She has served within the parliament in different roles as a parliament secretary in trade, finance, and tourism roles. She did study law at the McGill University and has also taught law at the Université de Montréal. And she has been a successful lawyer in commercial litigation and international arbitration. So the woman knows what she's doing. The woman understands the law. The woman understands the politics. And therefore, I would expect that for as little or as long as she stays, she may have an impact. But having said that, one thing that needs to be really understood is that it's not the ministers who decide or who make decisions or who make the public policies or who come up with all these new programs. It's not them. Yes, they are the face of the ministry. Yes, they are the figureheads of the department. Yes, they are the ones who are finally signing off on the policy decisions. But they are not the ones who say, you know what, let's do a tier to PR program today. Hey, you know what, let's start a home care pilot program today. I'm feeling like it. I think we need more home. It doesn't work like that. Or you know what? I have a feeling I want to bring more people from Quebec. So why don't we do a francophone draw today? We did one last week. Let's do another one today. I feel like it. It doesn't work like that. It's not how the department is run, or ministry is run, or the business is run. And I call it business because that's how different levels of businesses are within the ministry as well. These are all pre-scheduled, predetermined, pre-planned, pre-programmed, if you want to call it. There is a separate operational think tank within the immigration department, which is always looking forward in the sense of what they can do versus how it's going to benefit. They're going to run the data. They're going to run the analysis, right? IRCC is a very, very big ministry in the sense they have more than 35,000 staff across. So don't think of it as like a small department sitting in one small corner office at one government building. So it's not the minister who would make those changes and decisions. And therefore, whether it's Marc Miller, whether it's Rachel Bendayan, or anybody else in future, whatever has been thought of, whatever has been planned, in most cases should continue. And by that, the most frequently asked question about LMIA points is, in my opinion, again, and of course, everything is subject to change. And the reason why it is subject to change is that while policies have been established, while programs have been established and the decisions for policies have already been made, at a given point of time, depending on the dynamics of the market, depending on what's happening in the world at that point of time, the minister or the think tank or anybody else can choose to put a halt to a program or a decision that was going to be implemented. Therefore, while in my opinion, the removal of the LMIA points will go as planned when Marc Miller was the minister, there is always the possibility that there might be something from the advocacy groups or from the business lobbies, that might still influence whether it is implemented or not. And based on that, I would still say that in spring, you can still expect with high expectation that the LMIA points will be removed, should be removed, may be removed, of course. I know a lot of you are anxiously waiting, but also know that every time there is a category draw which comes in within the draws, then that also then adds more people within the pool. And for some reason, people feel that by removing of LMIA points, they will get an ITA. It's not necessary that that's how it works. Points will drop across the board. So everybody's, I mean, for people who are claiming points for job. But if you are at 470s, 460s, 480s, 490s and hoping and thinking that the minute the LMIA draw points are gone, you will get invited, I have to break it to you. It might not be that easy. Yes, it's still a far-fetched possibility that 490s look possible, but it's not that's going to be that easy. Because, for example, let's see this one, right? They did 2 back-to-back French draws, Francophone draws. Now, there's a gap of more than a month within the last CEC draw and what we are anticipating as an express entry draw, which will happen hopefully next week. Now, with this new express entry draw happening next week, which, as I said, is highly anticipated, and would be the first with Rachel being the Prime Minister, Rachel being the Immigration Minister and Mark Carney being the Prime Minister. If we have a CEC draw, 1 month has already passed. With 1 month already passed, the scores are not going down. There is a possibility, depending on the number of invitations, that the score, even if it drops, will drop with a very small number or might stay the same. But there is also a possibility of the scores going up, right? Especially the fact is that as of right now, the LMIA points haven't been removed. LMIA points were supposed to, or rather are supposed to be removed during spring. Spring extends from 20th of June until the 20th of March until the 20th of June, 3 months. And it's a very long spring if you go to see. And therefore, there has been no specific date given by IRCC or Marc Miller when Marc Miller was the immigration minister. Everybody's expecting something, some miracle is going to happen on the 20th of March. And on 20th of March, something will happen. But that's, if they had to identify a date, then they would have told you the date, right? For example, when they had to make changes for postgraduate work permits, from the beginning, the 1st of November, and they had to make changes on postgraduate work permit application or spouse open work permit. They said 21st of January. They gave you a date in advance because they were ready for that date. In this case, they are not ready for it yet. So it's a big, long 3 months of spring. I don't know when it happens in the month of, when in the spring it might happen, but that is something which you need to take care of and bear in mind. And also bear in mind that the number of draws will vary depending on how many draws they want to conduct for the different categories. So far, approximately 50% of the draws have been Francophone draws. I don't think they can continue with the same consistency throughout the year as it have 50% draws of Francophone. Expect similar number of draws that happened last year for them to continue with this year as well. But by and large, the express entry draw with CEC will continue. FSW, in my opinion, at this point of time seems highly unlikely. Of course, they can off general draw, and that is a possibility. But STEM, education, healthcare, trade, agriculture and agri-food, that draws at some point of time will happen. Now, how many draws will happen, we don't know. Again, we haven't got our hands onto any information which will give us a page of how many draws will happen under each section. The number of knock codes that are included might determine that they might get a bigger push. For example, last year, trade categories had a very low percentage in terms of how many people will be invited, or how many people will get an ITA, or will be invited in express entry. So trade now, with having about 25, 26 knock codes eligible under the trade category, including the cooks, and you can imagine how many cooks are there in Canada, and many of them would be quite interested to get forward, to get ahead with this one. So yeah, so this is going to be very interesting. Trade category, in my opinion, with addition of cooks has basically taken away from the whole essence of trade category, and everybody else who is a trade worker other than the cooks are going to lose out because of the number of cooks who are into the pool, pushing the scores up as and when the draw happens. Same is the case with the healthcare workers, with the number of PSWs who have completed PSWs, got the job as assistant nurse or nurse aides or orderlies, pushing the scores up. Pharmacy assistants, people who have somehow managed to become pharmacy assistants, whether it is in Canada or back in their home countries, are going to push the scores up. And again, healthcare is also going to see a higher end on the scores. That's what was evident when the score was at 463 with the last healthcare draw. Education is a new one for us. We don't know how many people in the pool, but one thing I can assure you that outside Canada, there is a big rush for people to become teachers. And certainly there are lots and lots of teachers now. We have primary teachers, high school teachers, but then, with all due respect to the teachers, they didn't have a good program in the past. So you might have a lot of teachers who are really gearing up to become eligible, early childhood educators and assistants, them as well. So again, with education, the draw cannot be low. I don't see I don't see that situation happening where the education draws are low. Can't happen because sheer number of people who will be in the pool. I'm expecting anywhere between 440, 450 above. That's the education draw. STEM. Now in STEM, what happened is, funny thing, they added the insurance agents, they removed all the IT tech knock code, which is, insurance agents is not understandable. Removing IT tech knock code is understandable, and that is primarily because of the current job market. IT tech is under serious recession. It has been for nearly a year now. And removing IT tech knock codes, considering the labor market at this point, makes sense. I can understand that one. What I can't understand is including the insurance agents in this particular category. I'm sure somebody might have either had brain fade or they might have had a brilliant moment. I don't know which one it is, but now we have insurance agents. And also that somehow adds to the scoring factor. And let me tell you how. Most people in Canada, if you take the STEM category, they're all engineers, right? That is what has been included in the STEM category. Largely engineers. There is one cybersecurity dude who's also been included in that group. But other than that, it's largely engineers, cybersecurity, tech, and then you have the insurance agents. Now, because if you're already in Canada, the chances are that you may not be practicing as an engineer because you need a license. And if you're a temporary resident, you are in Canada, you already have some time over here, you probably are not going to be working as an engineer because you can't, because you need a license. Unless you've been an engineer back home and you've come to or 1-year diploma, or you came on a spouse open work permit, now you've gained Canadian work experience and now you have those points. But those numbers are less. So with the STEM, but that's where the advantage goes to the insurance agents, not insurance agents who are in Canada, because there are not too many temporary residents or people who are on a work permit who took that option of insurance agents, not too many. But people outside Canada, right? Especially, let's say in India, like LIC policy agents, I do not know, so many other insurance company agents, they're all now eyeing this, provided they are able to score that 460, 470 kind of a score, which is a possibility in a lot of cases. So again, with STEM, I don't expect a high score of 490 like it was earlier. I expect more in the range of 460-ish, 50, 460. That's what I would think. Again, a lot of it depends on the number of invitations and the number of people in the pool. That's the basic calculation or the math behind it. Okay. Other than that, PNPs will continue. There's nothing with the PNPs that basically takes it away. And yeah, that's primarily it. Well, that's basically what I have for you. Connect with us on the social media platforms. We are everywhere. We are in YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, we are there. In case you didn't know, I am a CICC licensed immigration consultant, and I do run, thankfully, a successful immigration company based in Toronto. If you are looking for immigration representation, application submissions, filing, then please, hit us up, give us a shout, and what is it? Do I have it here? Yes, that's our email address here. And by all means, support@askkubeir.com. So drop us an email if you are looking for any services with regards to immigration. If you wish to book an appointment for consultation one-on-one, so we can understand, discuss your application, your query one-on-one, then this is the link, askkubeir.com/appointment, and we get to more understanding of what your application is all about. Now, questions, and I know lots and lots and lots of questions. First ones, at this point of time, also there is an ongoing delay in the issuing of COPRs. I know a lot of you have been asking, why is there a delay? There is no clear answer, but the fact is IRCC has been reaching their employees. They have also been laying off a lot of employees. At the last count, we heard 3,300 staff from IRCC were to be laid off over the next 3 years. It's not a small number, to be very honest, but again, and the reason why they decided to lay off so many people was because there are several streams that has ended or are coming to close, of which you also have the Ukrainians, and they were issuing their visas and the work permits. Then there are some other streams, like the TR to PR is now has basically come to an end. TR to PR, the application will be processed, so that basically come to an end. Big reduction within the study permits, big reduction within the open work permits for spouses as well. Again, postgraduate work permits, as we move forward, there will be a reduction in that as well, depending on your field of education being valid or not. So with all these applications expected to decline or decrease, they have had to reshuffle a lot of their employees in different departments, in different sections, the layoff as well. So that is understood as one of the big reasons of why there is delays in this COPRs being issued towards the end of getting your P2. And number two was that during the end of last year, 2024, they had actually approved more applications than their targets. They were actually, doing a much better job of processing the applications. So while they have the annual targets and annual quotas, they also have the quarterly and monthly targets and quotas. They are way above that. And now this is all a balancing act of releasing that many final decisions so that they can balance out their quotas at the same point of time. So those are the reasons that I come to know as to why this is happening. So that's the COPRs, that is the delay. Other than that, the application processing, well, we all know PNP applications are being processed, taking really, really long. It's now crossed 24 months. Spousal sponsorships outside Canada, pretty decent at about 11, 12 months, depending on which country you're applying from. But spousal sponsorship applications from inside Canada, ridiculously long that's taking. So that's the another thing, that the processing times have gone up. The visit visas and super visa applications, the processing times from different countries, again, really, really long. Even countries in Europe, for example, if you're in UK, the application times are really, really long. Sometimes just doesn't make sense as to why do they take that much of time. But that's how it's going on. What else have I got? Super visas and visit visas from India, about 3 months is what it's taking. And that's the average processing time that we have seen, and we are taking, we're seeing with the clients as well. But open work permits. So I know on 21st of January, open work permit policy changed for the spouses, right? So now, if you being the principal for national in Canada, if you were a student, then you already know that you have to be staying in a 16-month master's or in one of the professional days in order for your spouse to be eligible to get an open work permit. But even workers in Canada, that whole policy changed. Even workers, if you're working in Canada, you have to be working in tier code 0 or 1, or under very specific occupations under tier categories 2 or 3, only then you will be eligible to for your spouse to apply for an open work permit. And that rule, that new change, came into effect on the 21st of January. Now, people who applied before 21st of January in a huff and a puff, in a rush, a lot of them have made lots of mistakes, because that was the... So now we are already beginning to see a lot of people getting refusals. If you are one of those people who submitted your application in a huff and a puff, in a big rush, then please go through your application, go through the details of your application, review the details of your application. If there is still something which is missing, very quickly raise the form and upload your application, upload those documents to IRCC through the web form, so that you might still have a chance with it. Otherwise, if you get a refusal, then you pretty much out of the game as far as spouse open work permit is concerned, because now the new changes will apply in your case. So those are the things that are happening by and large. Otherwise, with Rachel Bendayan being the new sheriff in town, the changes that you can anticipate, you can expect. Look at this way, right? If Carney is to call for elections within this month, by March, then give it 2 or 3 months and you will have the new government in place. If you have the new government in place, which basically means, depending on who the new prime minister is, Rachel may be a immigration minister only for a few months at most. Would she, in this short period of time, want to rock the boat, make some drastic changes, make some radical decisions? I doubt it very much. I think it's going to be pretty much the status quo, the way things are. She's just going to basically let things tide along the way Marc Miller has already designed it or decided. I don't think Marc Miller was expecting to be fired from the department. But then, since a lot of ministers had decided not to run in the election in the future, so I guess they were let go. But I don't, from Marc Miller's tweet that we saw, I didn't think he was expecting to be fired. And maybe Carney could have continued with Marc Miller, but again, I guess they had other plans in mind. They want to portray to the public that we are a more functional government, a more functional prime minister who is willing to make these changes and bring more people, or rather people who are action-oriented, rather than continue with the previous ministers or who are pretty pally with Justin Trudeau. I guess that was the intention there, to have changed Marc Miller. But I think Marc Miller wasn't expecting it. But with Rachel now as the immigration minister, as I said, I don't see much happening, because for the next few months, it's the same. There is no certainty. And even if the elections are not called within this month, let's say month of March, but actually go on in October, even then, there isn't enough time for her to be, doing things which will really, really change the face of immigration the way it is today. They have to change so many things. Express entry is in need of a serious overhaul. The refugee claims, that reform is so badly needed. The fraud that exists within the whole process, that there has to be done something much more serious that has to be done in those aspects as well. At this point of time, I guess it's more lip service that gets played out rather than anything else. But new minister here, new sheriff in town, we wish her all the very best and hope that she actually does something within this short period of time. So let's keep our eyes open and see how that goes. Now, to your questions, and so many here. Oh boy. All right, a lot of people asking about the OINP draws and what's going on over there. I to be very honest, I don't have much information there. I did send out an email to them. Even with OINP, what I have been given to understand is that, one, that they also just had their elections about a couple of weeks back, right? Doug Ford is again the new premier of Ontario. But as far as Ontario is concerned, even they are coping up with a lot of applications that are in their current processing pipeline. And they haven't yet announced their quota for 2025. Depending on what their final quota would be, and I'm assuming it could be any 10,000-ish something, they might already have a lot of applications that are currently in process. Anybody who has their Ontario application will tell you that they're for a decision, or they're in the DIP stage, they're in assessment stage for a very long time. Earlier, Ontario would churn out a decision within 2 to 3 months. As of right now, 7 to 8 months has become pretty much a standard time that they're taking. And the number of applications approved is also quite low. To add to that, they are also very, very now strict and more, they are more active in terms of stemming out fraud as well. Ontario is now conducting site visits to the employers who have promised a job offer. They are conducting site visits to the employees' workplace locations as well. And so therefore that is happening in a larger instances than earlier. So not sure what's exactly going on with Ontario, but a lot of changes happening within their process as well. I'm the only thing I can assume here is that because of the number of applications in the inventory at this point of time, they may be sort of taking it slow. But at some point of time, everybody is hoping for them to come back with a bang. Okay, let's start with the question. Nitesh Shada saying, good morning. Just curious to know, when is your next in-person concert planned? Concert. I mean, as much as I would love to sing, I doubt you would want to hear me sing. As much as I would like to play lots of instruments, I doubt it very much that you would like to hear me play. But if you're talking about our seminars that we conduct, which we did one in February as well, we are looking for an appropriate venue. We have one venue which we have identified. We have already sent them out a bit of a proposal. They are expected to let us know when they confirm it. This probably is going to be somewhere towards the end of the summer, and hopefully that's what we're looking at. Okay, questions. Arjun KS, sorry, no question there. Keshav, no question there. Okay, Usma says, I work as a user support technician with a public school, but I also support staff and students at the school board. Can I change my knock code to a teacher assistant knock code? There you go. Well, Usma, you yourself are very clearly saying that you are working as a user support technician. That is your primary job. On some days and some occasions, you may be performing certain other tasks which may be seen as teacher assistant, but that doesn't make you a teacher assistant. So please be very careful on how you identify your knock code. Your primary function is that of, you yourself are saying you're working as a user support technician. So in this situation, how would you be a teacher assistant, right? So please be very careful. Choosing a wrong or incorrect knock code can land you with a refusal at most. So you have to be very careful with that. Spouse open work permit expires on April 30th. Wife has a tier 1 job, but 4 months contract mentioned. I'm also working full-time tier 1 job. Am I eligible for spouse open work permit extension? Last date to apply. Well, you can apply as late as possible before the expiry of your work permit. As long as your wife has a 0 or a tier 1 category job, you are eligible to apply for an open work permit, provided your spouse's work permit is also valid for at least 16 months by the time you make an application. Now, spouses on a contract role, 4 months contract, 6 months contract, full part-time, that doesn't matter. What matters is that your spouse is working and she or he, your spouse, you said your wife, sorry. So she has a 16-month validity on her permit, and yeah, that's about it. And that obviously she has a tier 1 or tier 0 job. That's primarily it. Nothing here. Will the French mobility program close on the 15th of June? Yes, French mobility program where you can score CLB5 and get a closed work permit. That was a public policy. And at this point of time, that is expected to end in June 2025. But with most of such policies, I anticipate and I expect, considering the push that is evident on the francophone programs, I would expect this to be extended further. Postgraduate work permit expires April. Score is 511. Likely no invite before expiry. Applying for extension. If I am invited while in applied status, how can I keep my job? Well, unfortunately, you cannot keep your job if you do not have work permit, right? So at the end of the day, you can apply for the extension. You can then, once you get your ITA, you can apply for your bridge open work permit. You can also send a copy of your AOR through the web form to IRCC and request them to accept this part of your first application. It's their discretion. In most cases, they won't, because at the time you did submit your extension application, you are not eligible for bridge work permit. But again, as I said, it's a discretion. I have seen strange things happening with IRCC. That's pretty much all you can do. And if you do not have work authorization, then you cannot work. In applied status for a study permit extension, when applying for postgraduate work permit, should I indicate that extension and postgraduate work permit need to be linked? Yes, you should let IRCC know that you had a valid study permit. Currently, you are on the implied status of the extension of study permit, and that now you are applying for a postgraduate work permit. By the way, please bear in mind that because you don't have a valid study permit, when you apply for postgraduate work permit, you cannot work. You have to wait for your postgraduate work permit to be approved. Only then you can work. So if you want to take an advantage of the implied status that you get while you are waiting for your postgraduate work permit to be processed, then you will have to wait to get your extension of study permit approved. Only then you can apply for postgraduate work permit. Only then you will get the implied status of working immediately once you apply for postgraduate work permit. Last semester, my wife's open work permit extension expired March 31. Her visa is expired. How to keep her stay valid legal till I get my postgraduate work permit? Well, you can apply for change of, you can apply for a change of status to a visitor once, and she can continue being in Canada, and that is also her valid legal status. That's what you can do. I have received P1 request in October from outside Canada. Now I have returned to Canada, replied to P1 email, how to request for P2, raised web form, no response, other way. Well, there is nothing much you can do except sending them an email, which you already have. Well, there is no specific timeline between P1s, P2s to COPR. There used to be at one point of time. Now there is nothing. That you have returned back to Canada, you have informed them. Now you just need to have patience and wait. Can I add spouse post ITA if the score stays the same in the range for a particular OINP skills trades draw? Good question. The problem here is that when you got your ITA, if your score was lower and you may have not been invited by Ontario, that itself creates a bit of an issue. In the recent past, Ontario has become quite strict about it. They have realized people are taking advantage and misusing this process. And I have seen on 2 occasions that Ontario has refused to allow the addition of spouse. And if you wish to, then they would withdraw the nomination, and therefore your application can get refused. So please check with Ontario first if they are allowing you to add your spouse. If they do, then yes, you may proceed. 40 years, I work for 40 hours per week with FANG company. I don't know what is that. Via my Inc. I also don't know what that you mean. Paid hourly plus HST through third-party firm. Can this count for CEC? If not, setting up payroll and paying myself a salary with taxes make it count. You are being paid hourly plus HST, which basically means you are being paid as a contractor, self-employed contractor, and this work experience does not count because there is no employer-employee relationship here in terms of salary. Now, if you set up your own firm and pay yourself a payroll and a salary, but you yourself are the owner of that company, then again, this is self-employed, and again, this work experience will not count. Gained 1 year experience in May due to maternity leave. Experience was split. IRCC profile updated in March. Can I accept CEC invite and submit after May? Yes, you can. It will all depend if you are able to complete your valid legal period of work within the duration of time that you have, that you're waiting for your submission after ITA. But as long as the day you submit your PR application, you have the valid period of work for which you are claiming points, then you're good to go. There's no problem there. When do cooks become eligible to practice trade? EE question, as we don't need license. On first day of work or high school or bachelor's graduation date. Now, because you are not showing yourself under the federal skilled trade category in express entry, you could mention any date and that's absolutely fine. You can show the day you graduated or your high school or the first day of your work. All of those answers are correct. As the new minister is here, a chance that she will kick the cooks out of the trade as the EE categories plan for this year is already out. No, I don't think so. It's not the new minister who makes this kind of a decision. As I said, it's the operations think tank who has come up with, after a lot of analysis and data and all that bull, if you want to call it, and that's how they have come up with that, and that's how it stays. As I said, I don't expect Rachel Bendayan to be making any such changes at this point of time. I think she will continue with the status quo in most cases. Post ITA NOC is translator, added my work experience, date became qualified, but I didn't have education for the NOC. Should I explain in NOC what I was fluent in both languages as mother tongue? You can, but again, please don't be too stressed about the date you became qualified. that question. That specific question, the day you became qualified, is meant for the federal skilled trades category, because that in order to be eligible in the trades category under the federal skilled trade category, there are certain criteria you need to follow. One of them is you gaining work experience after you have the qualification. It doesn't apply to experience class, it doesn't apply to federal skilled worker class. So you can choose any date depending on when you completed your education or depending on when you started working, and those are all fine, those are all acceptable. There is no issues there. I will complete 2 years of work experience in June. I would like to know when my CRS will be updated. Will it reflect in April or May? Well, the system is a bit glitchy. It usually gives you the points 1 month sooner than you have completed your work experience, unless you have 2 different Canadian work experience, in which case it might give you points months earlier. But please bear in mind that though you may get the points earlier, you should only submit your application after having completed a valid legal period of stay. Otherwise, it might result in a refusal. In PR application personal history, I have one internship from 9 years ago that's unverifiable now, no record, no points. Can this impact security check? Well, no, don't worry too much about it. If you are disclosing it honestly, truthfully, then it's not your problem, then it's IRCC's problem, and it won't make any difference. So please don't worry about it. Question: how long you are living in your country of residence? I'm living quite long. Okay. Came here as a student, now on a work permit status. Which date I should pick for non-express entry? In this case, you should pick the date you came to Canada the first time as a student. That is, since how long you have been working, living in your current country of residence. Appointment and experience letter, salary certificate, screenshot of resignation, email, ITR, subsidiary company letter mentioned salary was paid sometimes through subsidiary company account. Last, what are we asking? What are we talking about? I don't even know what you're asking me. Last salary paid in cash letter. Enough. Well, the whole point is, as long as you're providing documents to establish your period of work, your job description, your hours per week, your salary, and you're providing employment letter or employment reference letter and all supporting documents, then it's all good to go. CRS score is 425 in healthcare category. Any chance in express entry or Ontario healthcare draws? I can't tell you. I have no idea what the draws are going to look like, how the scores are going to look like. But all I can tell you is 425 certainly seems like a low score given the current scenario. You might be benefited by improving your scores. While creating express entry profile, should you only add the work experience you are claiming points for or all your work experience? Well, in my experience and what I do, I only add those experiences for which I am claiming points for my clients, and everything else will go in the personal history after they get the ITA. Reference or experience letter, 2 months starting salary slip, 2 months salary slips plus full and final payment, name change of company. Are these documents enough for foreign experience? Yes, those are enough. As I said earlier, as long as your documentation is establishing your period of work, your knock code, as in your job description, your salary, your hours per week, and proof of having been paid, then that is pretty much it. If there are any other inconsistencies, like you mentioned, the name change, then of your company, yes, you can add a bit of this explanation on that as well, and you should be fine. Can my boyfriend on a study permit invite me on a visitor visa, or must it be from PR or citizen? I prefer not to wait for his MBA convocation. Well, anybody who is in Canada, regardless of their status in Canada, may invite you as a visitor, but that doesn't mean that you will get approved just because you have an invitation, whether it's a citizen or a PR or a citizen. That the fundamental factor of you getting approval for your visit visa to Canada, while there is a very minor percentage, small percentage of the criteria of the person who's inviting you, it is largely dependent on your own documentation and merit, in the sense of what is your purpose of visit and what are your ties to your home country, what has been your financial documentation, what has been your past travel history, and whether you have returned back every single time all the time, and largely your employment, your business, your family ties back in home country. Those will determine the chances of your approval for your visit visa. CEC application, me and my wife submitted upfront medical. IRCC requested for her medical again. It was expiring in May 25, even though it shows everything completed on tracker for me. Is it normal? Yes, it's absolutely normal. Could happen for various reasons. Could also happen that they want to give you a longer duration in terms of the expiry of your COPR if you are not in country. But in most cases, a lot of times when it's close to the expiry of your previous medicals, and in some cases, if they have any reasons to, in your conditions, there might be something which they would need but more clarification on. In those cases also, they can ask you to retake or redo your medicals, but perfectly normal. I've had 7K CAD already in accounts, plus 7K CAD from a parent as a gift deed, and 9K CAD as redemption from investments. Any issues if the funds are just 2 to 3 days old? No, there is no issues as long as you are able to show the proof of where the money has come from and that this money has not been borrowed, then you're absolutely fine. No issues with that. Friend on LMIA closed work permit as baker and he has no study in Canada. IRCC removed baker category. Now, what are the ways to get PR? Well, in most cases, you will have to look for employer job offer and then look at the PNP options depending on which province the employer is from. If I get ITA with LMIA and the LMIA point was removed before submitting my application, does it affect my application? No, it does not. If you have already received the ITA with the LMIA points, then you can continue your application with the points and it's not going to impact. Me and my family moved from Middle East on study permit and work permit, now on high CRS score of 511. But we have some outstanding loans in UAE we could not pay due to situation. Will it count as criminal in PR application? Yes, it would, because you would need a police clearance and from UAE, and you can't get a police clearance from UAE if you have unpaid loans in the UAE. Therefore, and if of course the banks have registered a case against you, so the best thing would be to settle either with the banks or pay off your loans if you can. If not, then make sure that you pay the fine to the UAE court against those claims that the banks have made, so that they can remove the case from the file and give you a police clearance. But yes, this is the way you can get this thing done. But you will need a police clearance, and if you can't get a police clearance, then this will be refused. Postgraduate work permit extension refusal on October 15, applied visitor record with restoration, which got refused, left Canada. Any implication on PR application in future? No, absolutely not. If you are no longer in Canada, you don't have it, obviously you don't have status, and you already left the country, then you don't have a problem with your PR application. It's not an issue. Should we apply for a visitor record before the 60-day period expires when apply permit with LMIA number, or should wait until restoration period ends? The restoration period is not 60 days, it is 90 days, first of all. And when apply permit with LMIA number, or should we wait? I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to ask me, but just to let you know that the restoration period is 90 days, and whatever you are applying for, because I can't understand your question, you should apply for before the restoration period ends so that you can regularize your status in Canada. Will there be a TR to PR program? My God, you are still asking this question. I have already applied for Express Entries. Score is 438. I came in education category. I've applied for OINP. Any chances? First of all, I can't tell you your chances on this platform. Very difficult for me to do that in this very short duration of time that I have for each question. But TR to PR program, no, absolutely not. There is no way that I see program TR to PR making a comeback. As far as your score is concerned, it's too low. Look for employment opportunities, look for a job offer, look for an employer who can support your application, and then look at the PNP options or French as a second language. Got PR in Jan, can I leave LMIA job now? Did you buy the LMIA? No, I mean, anyways, as far as PR in Jan is concerned and leaving an LMIA job is concerned, why are you even working in the LMIA job is the question. Once you are a permanent resident, there are no conditions attached to it. There are no criteria attached to it. You can absolutely leave the job the next day and nobody is asking you because you are a permanent resident. There's no conditions attached. Can activities overlap in personal history? Yes, they can. Can I now add a 2.5 months of seasonal work experience to EE profile, which I did in 2023, as I need it now to complete my 2 years of experience? Is there any issue? No, there is no issues. You can absolutely add it. There is no problem with that. Is developmental service worker eligible for the caregiver program? I doubt it very much. But again, you will have to see if you were directly providing care to the elderly or sick, then in that situation, you might be eligible. But more importantly, can you find a job offer in a home care setting? That would be the bigger criteria to look at. I changed college before my first semester and worked full-time for 4 months. Oh. Exceeded 20 hours per week for 2 to 3 weeks. Should I submit an LOE? What's the worst case scenario? Well, the worst case scenario is that your postgraduate work permit gets refused. Any temporary residence application that you apply gets refused because you are in non-compliance of Immigration Refugee Protection Act, Section 41, which makes you inadmissible in Canada. So the worst that can happen, the worst case scenario is that your any subsequent TRV application or TR application, as in temporary residence, study permit extension, postgraduate work permit, those get refused, and they can also issue a removal order for you, so you have to leave Canada since you are not inadmissible to Canada. What is post LMIA removal? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see when the LMIA points are removed, what the pool is looking like, and how many invitations are being issued each draw. But yeah, I would say it's positive, but at this point of time, looks a bit of a stretch. Insurance agent with 2 years experience in Canada. I came here after my 12th. I have maxed out my IELTS. CRS score 456. Any hopes for me? Well, always remain forever hopeful. That's what I say. And 456, it's a possibility. We'll have to wait and see what the draw is looking like once they conduct a STEM category draw. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. There is no data which tells me what can be the expectation here. We don't also know how many invitations they will issue for this draw. So we'll just wait and watch. Got NOI from Ontario, tech draw, dip status now. My wife is primary applicant. My spouse open work permit expires. Can I create a new EE profile without my wife? My score alone is 485 to get bridge open work permit. Okay. Creating an express entry profile does not give you a bridge open work permit. 485 at this point of time is unlikely, at least by September 30th. So your plan for bridge open work permit in this situation is not happening. So I'm not sure what you're thinking, but just by creating an express entry profile, you do not get bridge open work permit. But to answer your question, can you create the profile? Yes, you can. That is not a problem. CEC single, Ethiopia waiting. My fiance and I lived together from October 23 with friends, but started dating from March 24. I replied single after P1. Can I inform CEC now? IRCC now? Yes, you should. You should definitely inform. You are on a very, very thin ice here, my friend. It's not going to be easy if you want to later sponsor your fiance or your fiance. It's always better to make sure you have it on record, clean and clear right now itself. So if you have completed your common relationship in March and you are still not a PR, then you must let them know and keep that email for record for future reference. Nothing here, nothing here. Okay, a question from, sorry, just Ekta, just give me a moment. A question from Instagram. It says, I am a non-express entry applicant with currently waiting for AOR with spouse added as a dependent and currently in India. Meanwhile, she got a work permit. Can she travel to Canada? Well, who is this guy? Dilip Kumar, yes, your spouse can travel to Canada. You are waiting for your application to be processed. You're waiting for AOR. It doesn't matter. If your spouse has a work permit and your spouse has a TRV to come to Canada, regardless of what is the status of your PR application, then your spouse can travel to Canada. No problem with that at all. I have created my express entry profile. As per IRCC rules, they can deny the person's entry. Will it affect when coming back to Canada from my home country? Well, no, it will not. Just because you have an active express entry profile and you have a valid visit visas and you're traveling to Canada, they are not going to deny you entry just because you have an active express entry profile. Please stop watching those TikTok videos that are scaring you into all these things. It's not going to make any difference. Please, if you have a valid visit visa or you have a valid status in Canada, by all means travel. Having an express entry profile is not going to make any difference. Ekta says, if employer company goes in receivership, is there a mandate for IRCC to provide open work permit for a period of closed work permit validity, in this case to employee? No, absolutely not. There is no such mandate, and you cannot get an open work permit just because your company has gone in receivership. I am on a closed work permit. Can I, sorry, going back to the previous one, there is a position of vulnerable open work permit, but that is for people who are vulnerable, not that their company went bankrupt or went into receivership. So vulnerable open work permits are for people who are being abused, harassed sexually, physically, verbally, in any manner by their employer, not being paid on time, being asked to work longer hours, are being held ransom on the basis of, they will not support your application kind of a thing. Those individuals, yes, can apply for an open work permit, but the company going on receivership, that does not give you an open work permit. I'm on a closed work permit. Can I study remote online for 1 year? PG diploma offered by UK college. Will I be able to claim points? Is it a violation? No, it's not a violation. You are studying online in a different country. There's no problem. You can claim points for it if you get an ECA for it. Study extension in applied status since August 24. Can I wait 180 days to apply for postgraduate work permit, given that IRCC states student status is valid only 90 days after graduation? So I do not understand what is your current status, in the sense like, have you completed your studies? Have you not completed your studies, etc., etc. So if you have completed your studies after 90 days, you are no longer on a valid student status in Canada. And if you have completed your studies, then you should apply for your postgraduate work permit if you, as I said, completed your studies. Can I put 0 on proof of funds as a non-EE portal as Saskatchewan SINP student? No, not on the non-EE portal. On the non-EE portal, you should still be able to show the available funds in your account or the fact that you are currently working. Please don't put 0 in that. That's not express entry. Futures of software developer or for the PR, well, at this point of time, very difficult to say. As long as you are eligible in express entry, you can score high in express entry, make that your future. Adding to my earlier question, as support technician, I help students and staff with classroom setup, password resets, and assist teachers daily. Are these tasks similar to teacher assistant role? No, they are not. They are still user support technician role. You are just helping them reset their passwords with the classroom setups. Unfortunately, this is still not teacher assistant. LMIA points still be removed after Rachel Bendayan, plus what PNPs will get more quota? Something we have to wait and see. She has just been a minister for a day, rather less than a day. So let's see what she does. I feel LMIA points will still continue. PNPs getting more quota, that we have to see. I think that was a more of a policy from the policy position, because the PNPs were refusing to take in more refugees. So we'll have to wait and see if they change that or not. Can I create express entry profile on my 11th month? And well, you can technically create your profile on the 11th month. But the thing is, when you're creating your profile, you're asking the question, have you completed 1 year in Canada? And you are saying yes to that, which is a lie. You haven't completed 1 year. So that is the gray area which you're trading on. If you have foreign work experience and you are claiming you're creating your profile based on your foreign work experience, then showing your Canadian experience as continuing and getting the points for it makes sense. But in your express entry profile, in today's day and time, with the way things are with IRCC, I would recommend always being very truthful and honest and transparent. This is not the time to mess around with IRCC. They are in a very different mode of, different mood right now. I work 44 hours weekly as a caregiver. My employer gave me a letter to prove that I will work full-time, and I have pay stub as proof. But my employment status is casual, not full-time. Can I apply? Yes, absolutely, you can apply. But when you say employment status, I'm assuming this is your current status. For the job offer that you get from the employer, it should be for full-time permanent role. Please request them to give you that. And again, at this point of time, IRCC has yet to clarify the conditions around this program. They haven't clarified the documentation requirement, the exact detailed criteria. That is still open. We don't know if that will change. So just wait. But in the meantime, if your employer can also give you a full-time permanent job offer letter, then that would really, really. My wife is on US study visa, first refused but cleared in a month. As the final F1 visa was approved, didn't mention it postgraduate work permit for PR, will stating the refusal affect my application? Not stating it will definitely affect your application. So don't worry about stating it. Please mention that you were refused and then cleared, but definitely not stating it is a bigger risk than stating it. So please mention that you were refused and then later approved. Employment letter states his term is scheduled to end on September 11 and will be extended beyond this date. Is this acceptable for my spouse's open work permit, and will the term end date be an issue? No, it is not an issue. There is no requirement within the spouse open work permit criteria for your employment offer or letter to be of full-time, part-time kind of a thing. Plus, instead of providing your employment letter, provide your current experience letter. You don't need employment letter. You just need the current experience letter that you're currently working. Provide your pay stubs, provide the letter with the job roles and responsibilities, and you're good to go. ITR is higher than salary. Should I explain it in LOE? As I was also part-time tutor, will add this to the personal history. You can provide a brief explanation. It's not a problem. 514 CEC without LMIA and any chances? Well, it seems like it's a decent chance. I can't tell you when, because I do not know how frequently the draws are going to be and how many invitations are going to be issued. But yes, it's pretty decent chances, I would say. Masters, UWO. In January, I applied for postgraduate work permit. Am I eligible to extend my postgraduate work permit for 3 years? I received my 1-year work permit, but my graduation date was February. Well, technically, no, you are not, because you got your postgraduate work permit submitted before the new changes came into the rule. You can apply for the extension, request IRCC for it, making a case that now the masters are 3 years, you gave me only 1 year, but it will depend entirely on the IRCC whether they will consider your request or not. Chances are less. I used cook job title before IT, didn't say line or pizza, used DLI of London where I studied but transcript from Sarnia. Is it okay? Huh? Well, it's okay. That's not a problem. In your cook title, you can make the changes as long as you are still the cook, right? Line cook or pizza cook doesn't matter. Just make sure you put the correct title there. And DLI of Lambton, and so wherever you were studying, please put the DLI number over there. And if the transcript is from a different location, then you can always add a letter of explanation. Can I claim work experience while doing 6 months course on postgraduate work permit? Yes, there is no problem with that. In my opinion, this has been going on as a very contentious subject. Even if you're on a postgraduate work permit, you can study or without 6 months or less. That is something which you can do. Did not add my foreign experience on the forms during any application, but had it in client information as SOP CV. Will that be a problem to claim this experience? It will be a huge problem. IRCC has become very, very, very strict with these factors. Let me see if I can show you that document. I'm not sure if I have it right now. I will see if I do have it. But yeah, it's become very difficult. Oh, I do have it. Awesome. I can show you. So what's happening is that though you show it in your SOP and CV, the point is, why didn't you show it in the form? So if you get a PFL, if your application is refused, you may still be able to, ask IRCC to consider it. You will still be able to explain it, but it's not going to be easy. Where is this? What I was going to show you. There it is. So this was a PFL which is received just day before yesterday. This was for a person who did not show work experience in the study permit application, work permit application, and yet claimed the work experience for points. Very, very tricky. Can also be seen as misrepresentation. Now, in your explanation, you can always try to explain why you did not show it. You can always explain that I had no intention of hiding this work experience because I did mention it in my SOP, in my CV. And you may get away with it, but it's pretty tricky. So please be very careful when you are claiming things for things that you haven't shown before. Got ITA with only CLB 5 in French. Should I go for it? I don't know what you're talking about, but if you got an ITA, you certainly should go for it. Why not? Worked 1 week between last semester result and postgraduate application issue. No, Shlok Patel, just, yeah, don't worry too much about it. Just, you didn't work. That's all I can say. Can I submit NOC B while waiting for postgraduate work permit and spouse open work permit for my husband? And also, I'm doing 5 hours part-time TikTok. Can I submit my NOC B while waiting for PGWP and spouse open work? I don't know what you mean by that, Christina. I don't understand your question. But in order to apply for your spouse's open work permit, you should be working in tier categories 0 or 1. And if you're working in category 2 or 3, that has to be eligible under the list of the NOC codes that IRCC has issued. And yes, you can be working part-time elsewhere. That's not a problem. I'm doing the duties of both cook and supervisor, but created my express entry for supervisor. Is it okay to change the NOC code? I have my LMIA application as well as one same NOC code. It's very strange. How can you be a cook and a supervisor at the same point of time? Well, all I can say is if you can prove it, you can claim it. That's as simple as that. If IRCC asks a question in future, then please be ready, please be prepared to answer as to how did you change from a supervisor to cook, because it doesn't really make sense otherwise. But yes, as long as it's genuine work experience, you have the documents, you can prove it, you can claim it. I got invitation for OINP in November and decision is pending. Married status updated. Can I include my wife in the next step for PR together? Yes, absolutely. If you have recently got married, congratulations. Please inform Ontario you are now married. Update your express entry profile that you are now married and live happily ever after. Excellent. Last question. I have 491 as my CRS score and 129 as my BCPNP. If I complete 1 year of Canadian work experience in May, do I get 40 points automatically added to my CRS? Can I receive EETA without the PNP points? Yes, absolutely. If your score is 491, add 40 points to that. Plus skills transferability, your scores could be very, very close to 540-ish, 530, 540. Absolutely, you will be able to get an ITA without any PNP points at all. That's awesome. Well, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for joining in. I apologize for the poor internet connection and the lag in the audio and video. I apologize for that. But it was lovely doing this again. Thank you so much. And until I meet you next time, until we see this next time, wish Rachel Bendayan all the very best, because we're really, really looking forward to her being really active with our express entries and all the other draws. And hopefully it works out in everybody's favor. Until then, stay forever hopeful, and I shall see you next time.